Hi, Vicky. Right, thanks, Vicky. Hi, guys. I'm just a little bit curious. Are you guys in Hong Kong or from different parts of the world? You can type your responses in the chat box, or you could speak to the microphone if you like. Ah, Australia. Hi, Mary. Welcome. How about the rest of you? So I assume you guys at home, right? Because of the pandemic lockdown. Yes. All right. I'm gonna share my screen. See if you guys can see my screen. Okay. So right now I've shared the mask for your heart. Can you see the mask of your heart screen here? Yes. Okay, great. Now, so th this mask for your heart was actually initiated the moment the pandemic happened in mainland China as well as Hong Kong. And what was interesting was after this Mass for Heart was produced, I received lots of media interviews, and this Mass for Heart even went viral in mainland China. So um, right now in Hong Kong and in China, it seems like it's more or less contained here right now. For those who are in Hong Kong, including myself, it is more of like what are the lessons that we can learn out of the pandemic. While for countries like maybe in the U.S. who is still having a really is really having a really serious situation right now, it's definitely going to be useful for them as well. So what I'm going to do is in the next uh, couple of minutes or no more than an hour, we'll look at what are different scenarios that we can learn out of this pandemic. And there are at least six situations. All right. So allow me to just quickly go through with them. And if you have any questions, just type it into the chat, and I'll try my best to address every one of them. Now, in this pandemic, you can see that in situation number one, uh, there are people who are not in the medical field. That's like uh, the normal person, like you and I, right? So we are this group of people. We are not actually affected by the pandemic, but however, it's however the pandemic somehow indirectly is affecting the mood of the people. So it could be it could be related to the things that's around us. It could be the news, or it could be the social activities in like Facebook and things like that. So, some of the symptoms that we could observe is that the people in this category, they're feeling unhappy, they're pretty bored for no reason, affected by negative news, right? Um, and sometimes become really sensitive to things that's around us. And sometimes it aggravates the emotions of this person, and becoming um, very angry sometimes, and running to conflicts, and if this is not taken care of properly, um, this person becomes disinterested into anything. and from a clinical standpoint, you can see some depressive symptoms being highly aroused, and start to be worrying about things, worrying about being affected by the virus. And I think and what happened is it actually affects their sleeping quality as well. So they're prone to having insomnia and even having higher blood pressure. Okay, so I think for this group of people, even if it's not the pandemic, I think what the lessons learned from this group of people is that sometimes we are being affected by the things around us, and I think if these information becomes so overwhelming, it leads to a symptom known as rumination. You guys heard rumination? Rumination is like putting negative thoughts in our mind and uh, keep thinking about it, keep thinking about it, right? Over and over again. So that's ruminations. So what are ways to, to what are ways to alleviate from these symptoms is there are four recommendations over here. And this psychological mask, I'm going to give you a link at the end of the sessions, and you guys can download this psychological mask as well. All right. So there are four recommendations. One is particularly for this pandemic, right? That all diseases actually have their limitations. And we could actually do something like fact check, like for example, to know more about the coronavirus. What's the temperature, for example, that the virus is not able to survive, right? And what are the conditions that the virus has to be met in order for it to spread from one person to another. So I think one of the ways is to do fact checks, right? And and by doing that, it actually engage in more of our left brain, which is the logical mind, right? Because otherwise, we will be relying a lot on our right brain, and our right brain is controlled by our emotions. Okay, so again, uh, some of the lessons learned from the pandemic is even if it's not the pandemic, right? A lot of times we are engaging on our right brain. Okay, so so we should do more, I mean, highly recommend we should do more fact check, right, before um, we fully believe in something, right? So, and also we can sometimes we are affected by the behaviors around us, and and a lot of times we can observe how people, put their own standards or opinion to things, like what are different, because different people have different personal hygiene, right? Some people, they might wash their hands, for like 5 seconds. Some might wash their hands for 20 seconds, or some not even washing their hands at all, right? And and I think the bigger problem is when we observe how people around us behave, and that actually affects how we see things, right? So that is a bigger problem, right? So one of the ways to combat this is to, as mentioned, we can filter the information that goes into our brain, and one of them is doing fact check, or we can try to look at things from different standpoint, because uh, from a cognitive standpoint, a lot of people, they engage in blaming behaviors, like blaming on this, blaming on that. But a way to turn it around is to look at it from a more positive standpoint. Okay, so there is some different tools that we can utilize, and one of which is known as the ABC. I'm going to type this in for you guys. ABC technique. Okay, anyone of you heard of this before? Called the ABC technique. All right. If you like, if not enough time, you guys can Google this, and Google this, and it will give you guys some insights how to use this technique to alleviate ourselves from these situations where we are so affected by the things that's around us, right? And when the things that's affecting us so bad, right, we um, start to engage in blaming behaviors. So blame external factors, blaming the government, blaming this, blaming that. And I think the worst part of all is we blame ourselves. And when we blame ourselves, it will it'll cause our emotions to escalate to a point that is so severe that is known as the depressive state of mind. All right. So this is really important. ABC technique is going to help us. All right. So quickly we can move on to the second situation. That is, let's say you are not affected by the pandemic, but maybe your relatives or friends, they have been affected by it. So some may have been quarantined, um, and so somehow the pandemic is also affecting the mood of this person. So they may be feeling feelings of shock or overwhelmed. They'll be shocked. Why is my family member being affected? Why is my family member being infected by the disease? So they may start to worry about the safety of the loved ones. They may start to worry whether the more loved ones will get affected or whether ourselves will be contracting the virus as well. So feeling a feelings of contradiction, right? Or sometimes they may feel angry, why they are being affected, right? And they start again to have blaming behaviors like they must have done something wrong. They must have done something wrong to get themselves affected. Why they're not wearing a mask, right? Why do they hang out with other people? Why they are not practicing social distancing, you know? So again, it's very similar to situation number one where they start to have lots of negative thinking, negative thoughts, and again, um, they might lead to blaming behaviors, and the worst part of all is um, they will reach a depressive state. And I'm sure you guys probably know that the most severe form of depression would lead to suicidal behaviors. So for this group of people, here are some recommendations. One is to understand that excessive fear is definitely not a way um, to 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 resolve the situations. And one of the ways is to, we need to express ourselves, because usually emotions is like why emotions become more severe is because there is no outlet. There's no outlet for emotions to be expressed, right? So one way is uh, to maybe find friends who you can trust, right? To confide your feelings with them. And we have to be careful not to confide with family members, because especially those who are already affected. Otherwise, it will aggravate the situation further, right? So maybe you can find some friends who can, whom you can confide with. And let's say if there is no such friends who are not able to open their ears to your expression, then maybe that's where professional practitioners can help you, like psychologists or counselors. So that's why we get paid, to open a listening ear for clients to express themselves. So this is a way to, to self-soothing, right? And also to learn to accept the fact that the friends and relatives has already been affected. We have to accept the situation. And maybe can also find out what are the ways we can help the affected friends and relatives, whether it's material help, what are the things they need, we can like send it to their house or something like that, or it could be in a way to become the listening ear to them, for them to express their emotions, right? So if you are uh, opening yourself, availing yourself to be a listening ear to them, one of the ways you could do is not to give your personal judgment on them, but more of being empathetic to them by showing empathy to them, right? And we can show empathy to our loved ones by simply just be a mirror and just by paraphrasing what they're saying, right? If they are really, really angry by a situation, we can just, reflect back to them, say, hey, you sound really angry, I mean, we don't have to add additional informations to the situation, right? So that's situation number two. Situation number three, okay, is we ourselves are being affected by uh, the virus. And for this group of people, again, you feel feelings of shock, worried, scared, overwhelmed, and some of the people, um, they're not able to accept the situations. They will be questioning, why me? Why me? Why am I affected by the virus? So again, it will lead to self-blaming behaviors like feeling remorseful, guilty. They might be digging out information. What is the behaviors that causes themselves to be affected? So they feel sad, and they might even go to the extent of giving up on themselves, right? They'll be wondering whether they will be feeling better. So in other words, they have a general negative worldview on themselves, and they have a negative worldview towards work. If they're holding on to a job, um, and they just don't have the motivation, um, to continue to work. So again, from a clinical standpoint, usually they are suffering from some form of depression as well. So if that's you, again, there are 6 recommendations here for those who are being affected, um, or for those who have contracted the virus. So the first recommendation is obviously you have to control the emotions as well, and follow the follow the government orders, like, or medical orders. Trust and follow the medical or instructions, and hope for the best. Okay, and again, try to engage in um, emotional regulation behaviors, like finding some people you could trust and to share your emotions, your expressions with them. Or if there is no one you can uh, seek help from, maybe you can engage in some therapeutic interventions, like maybe drawing, writing, um, making a phone call to friends, like video conference, like what we're doing now. So these are some of the ways we can, regulate our emotions, and also can also prepare for the worst, right? Prepare for the worst. So in a way, is accepting the reality. Okay, because most of the time, people in this category, they are living in denial, right? They're not accepting situations, blaming themselves, blaming other people. Okay, so how do we prepare for the worst is possibly can, through reading books, can read about philosophy of life, can read about, um, uh, I mean, they can have a serious thought. I mean, it is a good opportunity, to have a serious thought about their lives. What's the life purpose on? What are they living in on Earth for, right? So that's where they can really start thinking about the purpose of life, and and they could also make this opportunity to really think about who are the people who are important in their lives, right? To reach out to them, to express what are their unfinished businesses in life. I mean, that's an opportunity, isn't it? To really to think about it and to act upon it, and also to have the courage to accept accept the situation, and there's gonna be emotions being stirred up in this scenario. Okay, so I think uh, so one of the insights that can draw out of this is, um, if, and I mean not just for the pandemic, in our daily lives, even after the pandemic, there might be some situation which we cannot control, right? So I think we can learn that we have to first of all accept the situation that we are in, and to really think about the purpose of life. Why are we in this world? What is it that you want to contribute, to our society, right? And I think that will actually makes a person happier. Because research has shown that when we actually reflect and really have a serious thought on our lives, we actually live longer. All right, so I think this is something we can, draw out from the pandemic. Now let's quickly go into situation number four. So situation number four is, unfortunately, there are loved ones who has died because of the pandemic. And again, because of this fact, it's affecting our mood. So symptoms would be, again, feeling shock, feeling overwhelmed, feeling in a state of denial, can't accept the fact that our loved one has died because of this pandemic. Uh, Engaging in blaming behaviors as well, feeling of regretful. So this regret could be twofold. One is regret why, maybe feeling regret why this person has contracted the virus and died, or it could be feeling regret that there might be some words or actions that you haven't expressed to the deceased, right, before they have died. So this would cause the negative emotions to stir up as well for this person, right? So what are the recommendations for this one? Now, if this is the case, this is a more severe case which has to be dealt with some what we call grief therapy, right? So by following these 8 steps, we actually get this person to go through a grief therapy. So instead of getting a counselor or a psychologist to do grief therapy for the person, by going through these 8 steps, this person actually go through the grief therapy themselves. Okay, so to simply put, the 8 steps would be, first of all, again, to accept the situation that this person has, has died, and there's going to be lots of logistical stuff that's be handled, like funerals and things like that. And the second step is to actually reflect upon the situation. What are the things that you really want to say to the disease, or what are the things that you plan to do together, which you haven't done so? You can write it down. And the third step is probably take out maybe a photo of a deceased person, put it in front of the person, and to really say it, say it to the person, so they can allow the emotions to flow out naturally. And to also think about what the deceased might want to say back to you, right? And that actually gives opportunity for the person to fulfill any of the unfinished business that the deceased might have wanted to finish, and you can actually fulfill it on behalf of the deceased person. All right. And number five is pretty similar to step four, but it's more of positive actions that you can uh, convey back to the deceased, so that the deceased can feel more peaceful in heaven. And step number six is to make a promise. Make a promise that we're going to act upon the plan. What are the actions that is stemming from this situation that you can help with the unfinished businesses. And step seven is to, again, to slowly accept the situation, although that there might be some part of us are not, I mean, some part of us are still living in denial, and to accept the fact that it takes time, to realize to realize uh, the reality. And step number eight is to, again, to realize that it's going to make us to feel sad, but to look at it positively, to how we can contribute and help with the wishes of the disease, to help with their unfinished businesses. All right. So these are the 8 steps of the grief therapy that is going to be helpful for people who are going through um, the grief situations. So again, this is something we can also learn out of this pandemic. That is sometimes um, we we might have experiences things that has already been happening, and we are experiencing the consequences of the negative situations. All right, it might not be so severe as in a person that has been diseased, but it might be some situation that that has some negative consequence and is affecting our lives. So again, we can go through these 8 steps, to combat this, and that is to accept, first of all, accept the reality, and also to think about what the what a positive aspect we can learn, we can draw out of the situation, and finally to work and act upon it, because we still have so much time on Earth, and I think the question is how are we going to make use of the remaining time on Earth, right? To have a kind of like a second chance to do something even better, or to finish off the unfinished businesses. All right, so that's situation 4. And quickly we go down to situation 5. Situation 5 is more for the medical professionals, because in this pandemic there are doctors, nurses, they are having a really, really terrible time right now. Because think about it, they have to work long hours in hospital, wearing a mask, and if you look at some of the photos that they put on the social media, they are suffering, physically. They're suffering emotionally and mentally, psychologically. And their state of mind is very, very contradicting. They are having mixed emotions. So, in one hand, they're trying to help as many people as they can. On the other hand, they're also worried that they'll get infected. And they are consistently, distancing themselves from their loved ones, because they're also worried that they might, be a carrier of the disease and spread to their loved ones. So some even might go to extent of not disclosing what they're doing, right? They will probably switch off social media, uh, and just don't want other people to know about what they're doing. So during this period of time, they'll be really, really tired, and they are not showing interest in meeting people or whatsoever. So again, the quality of sleep, their quality of time are very, very affected. So for this group of people, here are some suggestions for the medical professionals. And that is to maybe after work, they can spend more me time, right? Um, and me time could be like watching their favorite movies, eating the food that they like. And I would add that um, it'll be better off for them to eat healthy food. Healthy food could be organic food, or eating more vegetables and fruits, or food that's of green color. So basically, it's like treating themselves better. Reading a book that they like, listening to the music they like, and again, maybe meet friends who can share similar interests. So in a way for them to self-regulate their emotions. All right. So I think again, what the insights that can be drawn from this situation is so sometimes we might be so worn off from work, working long hours in our job, and after work we actually uh, lack our self-care. So I think it's also about showing the care and love for ourselves, and um, by these recommendations, These are some of the ways we can, show care to ourselves. Now, from a clinical perspective, we can also do things like mindfulness, or doing things like body scan. Have you guys heard of body scan before? Like scanning our bodies, right? From our hair to our toes. And that is a way of showing care to ourselves as well. So we can show care to ourselves by doing things that we love, or we can also show care for ourselves by giving attentions to each and every part of our body, right to the cellular level. Okay, so some experts in mindfulness, they can spend hours, meditating upon themselves, right? Going through the cellular levels of our body, our hands, our head, everything. Okay, so that I think that's a way you can also show care to yourself using mindfulness approaches. And I think this is a really good point. Sometimes, crying can be a way to self-soothe ourselves as well. All right, and sometimes it's good, to cry alone, so that so that we won't be afraid that people will be judging us. Okay, situation number 6. Now, situation number 6 is a really interesting one, because this group of people, they are not affected by the pandemic. They're not affected by the news that's around them. They're not affected by the environment. But what's interesting is that they are affecting other people. They are affecting other people, ironically. Um, have you come across such situation where other people are affecting other people? So so even when everyone is worried about pandemic, they think that they are calm. Now, whether they are calm or not, it's really subjective, right? um, but they feel that they are calm. They feel that they are in control. So because of the fact that they feel that they are able to protect themselves or take care of themselves, they would kind of want others to act in the same way as the way they believe. So from clinical standpoint, these are the guys who are probably OCDs, obsessive compulsive people. They will want others to follow the way they are behaving or thinking. And sometimes they may think that being fearful is unnecessary. They would say, why are you feeling this way? You should do this, you should do that. So they would use a lot of languages, or the shoulds, or the musts, right? So in psychological and clinical standpoint, these are some of the taboo words. So if we find ourselves using a lot of shoulds or musts or ifs, right? So these are some of the alarm that you have to be aware, right? So these are some of the compulsive and impulsive languages that forcing people to behave in a way that we want them to. So interestingly, they might think that they're helping other people, but from other people perspective, they actually feel more aggravated. They feel worse. Okay. Um, so I think here are some recommendations for this group of people. And again, if you are falling in this category, first congratulate yourself, because you might. I mean, you first of all, I think the good thing is you are aware that you are in this group of category. Um, so you learn how to look at things from other people's perspective. Learn what's the underlying reason why people are fearful. Learn to also appreciate them, to be showing more empathy to other people. And by showing more empathy is to allow others to accept their emotions. So instead of giving a label to, or I mean, instead of telling them what they must do or what they should do, we can again act like a mirror, right? Showing empathy to them. Say, you sound like you're angry. You sound like you are scared. And again, just paraphrase or repeating the words that other people say to you is going to be more helpful than more helpful and more effective than imposing your judgment and suggestions onto other people. So, the third recommendation is to learn to accept that different people have different feelings and different people have different personalities and different choices, right? And try to reduce the so-called super rational suggestions to the people who are seeking help from you. Because due to the fact that, again, we are coming from different personalities, some people who are more of the feeling type, they're actually seeking more of emotional regulation rather than problem solving, right? So I think, although it's not easy for those who are super rational type to show more empathy is not easy. But I think we can try to, change the order. So instead of immediately giving the suggestion or the suggestion to solve the problem, try to, be more reflective on the other person's emotion before you give the suggestions. So this could be some of the ways that the people in this category can improve themselves. Now, step number 5 is a really good one. That is to train up the feeling functionality of this person. Can indulge in more volunteer work, right? To go for more volunteer work, you can learn to see things from other people's perspective. You learn to be more considerate to other people, and you can learn to train up the rational mind to bring more courage to other people's lives. Okay, so I think again some of the insights from this scenario would be again to show more empathy when we are relating to other people, rather than uh, forcing or imposing other people to follow our behavior, but rather we show our compassion to other people. That hey, I'm really listening to you, right? So how do we show people that we are listening to them is to paraphrase what they're saying or to mirror what they are saying or their body languages, right? So once the other person have a sense that you are listening to them, they will then listen to you. So I think this is the insight that we can draw out of scenario 6. So with that, I have gone through the 6 scenarios that we have observed during this pandemic, and I hope that is useful to you. Um, and and if you are still in the pandemic, so these are the 6 recommends. I mean the 6 recommendations given from this psychological mask, or even post-pandemic. So these are some of the insights we can draw out from what we've learned, and we can then apply into our lives as well. All right, so I'm done with my presentations, and let's see if you guys have questions, or I'll pass the time back to Vicky to moderate this. Yeah, thanks, guys. I'm glad you find this useful. Yeah, let's keep in touch. If you have any questions, yeah, you feel free to approach me. My website's there, and I can be easily contactable there. All right, stay safe. Stay safe in Australia, and for the rest of you, different parts of the world, stay safe and stay calm and carry on. Bye.